This is, let's be straightforward and succinct here, a massive dunk on the rim, balls in the face win for Donald Trump against everybody else who was out there that was a massive enemy of his. This is the mainstream media, primarily not just with egg on their face, as Dan Rather said back in the day, this is an omelet on the face. This is Donald Trump, balls to the face, dunking on all of his critics out there in the Mueller report. I'm going to summarize it succinctly for you. First of all, there was no collusion. All of the talk about Russia, all of the talk about conspiracy, all of the talk about collusion, it didn't exist with the Trump campaign in Russia. Boom, that story is put to bed. It no longer exists. This was one of the greatest hoaxes ever perpetrated on the American public by the mainstream media that hates Donald Trump. They want him to lose his presidency. They are so upset by what happened in 2016 that they want him gone, and they were willing to buy into an illegitimate and absurd hoax, the idea that Russia had decided who was going to win the election. Here's what happened. A tiny number of people, about 80,000 of them, in Pennsylvania, in Ohio, in Michigan, and in Wisconsin, all found Donald Trump's pitch better than Hillary Clinton's. And a few million people out there switched their vote from Barack Obama to Donald Trump. And that's why this election went the way that it did. It's not because of Russia. It's not because of anything else. It's an overall failure of the breakdown of the Hillary Clinton campaign. Now, bigger picture. This guarantees that Donald Trump, absent a heart attack or an assassination attempt or some major health-related issue, is going to serve out the entirety of his term. The question that Democrats have to decide, if they are being somewhat intelligent, is whether to continue to combat Donald Trump on this front when he has dunked on them all balls to the face via the Mueller report, or whether they are going to acknowledge that Trump won 2016 and start thinking about how to beat him in 2020. I have long said the way to beat Donald Trump is to say not that he is the devil, not that he is Hitler, not that he is evil incarnate. It's to say, you know what? I think Donald Trump has done some things well, but I think I can do more things better than him. Donald Trump wins when he is turned into a deplorable, when his supporters are attacked as being racist, sexist, awful human beings. You are playing into his winning strategy when you do that. The way to beat Donald Trump is to say, you know what? I think Donald Trump has been fine, but I think I can do better. Now let me make the case why I can do better. That's the way to beat him. You don't out-anger Donald Trump. You don't outrage Donald Trump. You don't beat Donald Trump by trying to out-Trump Trump. You beat him by making a better argument than he can about why the country is in better shape. I think the best possible duo, being honest with you, in the wake of the Mueller report, the Democrats, if they want to win in 2020, would nominate Joe Biden, and he would run with Stacey Abrams, the governor from Georgia. Boom, they win. They win the election. I think they beat Donald Trump in 2020. Because then you have an old white guy in Joe Biden with the Obama stamp and a young black woman on his ticket running against an old white guy in Donald Trump, and he is able to go fight for all those voters in Scranton, Pennsylvania, for all those voters in Toledo, Ohio, for all those voters in upstate Michigan and in Minnesota, right? And in Wisconsin. That's where this election should be decided. And that's where the election would be decided if you ran an old white guy like Joe Biden against Donald Trump in 2020. It takes away all the identity politics arguments. it takes the election out of the prism of identity politics. What I think is more likely is that the Democrats fall deeper into the identity politics pothole, that they completely eliminate anybody who is a white man from being in the running to be the nominee for their party, and that they go with somebody like Kamala Harris, who is a black woman and represents the exact opposite of Donald Trump. That's what social media would lead the Democrats to do. Are they smart enough to respond to the Mueller report's vindication of Donald Trump by saying, you know what, we're not going to try to impeach Trump. We're not going to continue to fight the battles of 2016 and how that election took place. We are going to move forward and try to pick the best nominee to beat him in 2020 now. Because Donald Trump is going to serve out his term. The best thing that could happen to Donald Trump is the Democrats become unhinged. They let AOC and all of that aspect, Bernie Sanders, of their party, the far left wing, govern everything. And if that happens, then Trump in 2020 becomes a lot more likely. But you can't mistake what happened here. There was no collusion at all, according to Mueller. There was also, according to Barr, who reviewed the evidence, no obstruction of justice. And this is an important part. By the way, it's hard to obstruct justice in general when there's no underlying crime that you're trying to obstruct. That's a hard case to prove in general. I don't know if there's been a lot of discussion about this, but if there's no underlying crime that you're investigating, then proving that you believe occurred, then proving obstruction of justice is an insanely difficult standard to meet. I don't think a lot of people understand that from a criminal perspective, but it's hard to obstruct justice when there is not actually a crime. So when you say, hey, we didn't find any evidence of collusion with the Donald Trump campaign, it's almost impossible to actually then allege obstruction of justice. This is a pretty big detail that I think a lot of people have missed, okay? The other aspect of this is there is a precedent in place. There's an argument that you can't indict a sitting president. There's that argument that's out there from a legal perspective. What I thought was important about the Barr ruling when it came to obstruction of justice is they said that even taking away the fact that we're investigating the President of the United States in their letter, we don't believe the evidence rises to the level of obstruction of justice. Okay? That is even not considering that this is the President of the United States. We are saying that the evidence wouldn't rise to a level of obstruction of justice charge if this were a private citizen. That's a significant step that, again, most people have not spent a lot of time analyzing. This was as sound of a win as could possibly happen for Donald Trump. I do think that releasing the report with the parts that might be classified and with the parts that might be inaccurate, it's not inaccurate, but that aren't public and wouldn't deserve to be public, that cleaning that up is probably a good move in the long run. But I think this is a major issue that is a huge win for Donald Trump. It buoys him in a large way going into 2020. And I don't think that very many people out there on the left at MSNBC and CNN, all of these outlandish predictions they had made about the fact that he was going to be indicted, the fact that he was going to be in jail, the fact that he was not going to be able to serve out the rest of his term. Again, Trump has dunked on them all balls to the face style, and there is absolutely no evidence to support anything about a criminal misconduct on behalf of Donald Trump. This was a huge win, and there were a lot of people who lied about it out there.